Right, good afternoon guys, and welcome to today's second vlog. This is the main vlog of today. We are here to have a peruse, a look around a significant tunnel. Well, two tunnels if we get in the second one. The second one believed to be haunted because of a tragic freak accident that happened back in, I believe it was 1915. I'll tell the story of that as we get to the front of that, but we start off here and let's have a look at the sign here. Turns around and says Madewell Bridge. This behind me here is an old Victorian bridge, or the framework of what is left of it. So we're going to make our way from here. This was just to park and start the intro to the vlog. We're making our way down. We're not going to walk all the way from here to Kelmarsh. I think it's a couple of miles, where there's a car park right on site of it, so that just makes perfect sense. So we will catch you there guys. See you in a bit. Okay, we've reached a picnic area adjacent to where we want to be to make our travels to Kelmarsh tunnels, but right next to where we are, this here is an abandoned MOD fuel dump. So all your fuel supplies during probably the Second World War, all well within great big silos, etc. Below the ground you see the banked up area. Right, and this would have been the entrance as Paul makes his way up in front of us. This would have been the old Kelmarsh station back in the day. Probably a platform around this area. So to your right you've got the Great Oxenden Tunnel through the Market Harbour. Used to be known as Harborough, and where we're going is Kelmarsh Tunnels. Half a mile to our left. This is the road that we came down to get here. That road branches off to the A508 at the end now, and that crosses over the A14. And to your left would be Northampton, then on to Milton Keynes where we're from. To the right up towards Market Harbour and into Leicestershire. This has got to be the hottest day of the year so far, so we're going to be so relieved when we hit that tunnel, because the temperature, well, the temperature out here being what it is, I would imagine you're going to be turning around and saying at least 10, possibly as much as 20 degrees in difference, and that'll be a relief for sure. But one thing for sure, that is, they turned around and said from where we parked, the signage turns around and says it's a half a mile to Kelmarsh tunnels. Nah, I'm saying maybe as the crow flies, but I'm saying a mile easy. Alright, so further half a dozen minutes or so later from me last speaking, we can see the tunnel in sight there. So yeah, definitely a mile from where the parking area is. I'm looking forward to this. Okay guys, we are now in full view of the public access Kelmarsh tunnel, which I believe is about, I think it's between 450 480 meters long. Pitch black all the way through. You can see just a little silhouette of light in the distance. We shall film in and around both sides. Temperature is already dropping, which is a fantastic feeling. It really is. And this is it, folks. We are inside the Kelmarsh Tunnel. The old drivers used to call these rat holes because of the single bore and the tight narrowness. The little hideaway shelters as we go further forward, that people that work used to stay in the little alcoves to the side as a train would come through, but there wasn't much room to hide, that's for sure. If nothing else, guys, it's good just to call off down here. Doesn't cost you a penny to get here. Well, maybe apart from your fuel, etc. Park up, free parking, and then make your way in and come and explore. I've got Adventures of Paul up there in front of us as we make our way through. I said, without the torch, you can't see what is on the floor. There's large bits of wood, some rocks scattered about. It's a well trodden path, to be honest with you, and I've noticed the further you get in, you get that echo. It's one of these places that we've always wanted to come to. Said this one, there will be ghost stories for sure that come from this place, but they all happen pretty much next door. As we get round to that side and the down tunnel, I will turn around and tell you the story. Pretty tragic, pretty grim, but it happened a long time ago. See these areas here, modern brickwork to brick it up, but these are the areas that your workers would have sort of seek refuge when they knew a train was approaching. Maybe someone blew a whistle, maybe they just heard the train coming, and they would step back into that, wait for it to pass, and then they were free to come about their business again. It's probably pretty much just full of rubbish now. If you notice, you've got reflectors either side. Looks if Paul's reached your major air access. There'll be little portways that go. I think it's only got the one, and there's not one in the down tunnel that's actually here. We get an amazing shot from here, make it look as if an alien is above you. There you go. That's where your air's coming from. Oh, it feels really, really cool. And surprisingly, there's not a cloud in the sky, yet it's dripping. Maybe through pipe work. They say don't step into the light, or in this case you've got to, otherwise you ain't getting out of the tunnel. But this is the northern entrance to the Kelmarsh Tunnel. We'll come out this side, have a look what's up the bank round the side of it, then make our way back through before trying to find the down tunnel, the spooky one. Yeah, we'll make our way up the bank and look at the Victorian architecture. I guess that is just like a water drainage system, let the water run around the side so it doesn't build too much at the top. But I tell you what, that would make an incredible slide if you're into your theme parks. I don't fancy the going through the stinging nettles, and there's the brickwork at the top. So I'll try and get further up and see if we can get rid. There's not really a great vantage point from these banks. I think the other side has got more of a decent stepway to climb up the top, but this is just too overgrown around the top there, and as per usual I've come ill prepared. I'm in a pair of shorts and it's full of stinging nettles. Me and Paul were just saying it's sort of not a lot of people, and I imagine at the weekends it's probably very busy with families bringing their kids through here, but this is a weekday, so we are the only two people probably within a couple of miles of the place, which is cool. It means that we can explore, we can only hear our own voices. If there's any other voices, you know that's from beyond, and it just adds to the creepy vibes of the place. And looking up at the ceiling, I don't believe, perhaps the other tunnel, but not this one so much, you're looking for where you could have bats dwelling, because they love the dark obviously, but because this one has got public access, I think the down tunnel, of course if we can get in there, that is where you might possibly find bats. They'll be here for sure, but they are tiny. Okay, we've come back out of the exit at the top end that we come through, and we're hoping this adjacent side path that's well overgrown will lead us to the down tunnel. Whether it does or not, I'm not sure, but it's worthwhile having a look. Well, that's certainly the down tunnel, so we'll continue to make our way through to it. It's where we find out whether we're on the side that gives you access or whether we've got to go back through the tunnel. Not 100% sure, and I won't be till I get there. So I'm going to find out, see if this side is open, as I'm getting stung to pieces as I usually do, going through thorns and bracken, etc. But this is your notorious haunted down tunnel. Certainly a lot more sketchier than the first one with the public access that we walked through. Always good to find an open door, and this is it. This is the one of the haunted tunnels. There are two of them. There's a downside to the Oxenden tunnel, and there's a down tunnel to the Kelmarsh tunnel, which is the one we're in now. As we get further in and it's a bit darker, I'll tell the story as I've heard it and see what you make of that. First thing you notice as you start making your way through this tunnel is the fact that this has still got the shingle on the floor. The other one, as you can tell, you didn't hear any sounds as we went through. It's a nice smooth floor where it's been walked on so many times over the decades. The tunnels themselves, back in the mid 1800s I believe they were opened up, and they were finally closed. I believe it was around 1981. They tried to reuse them back in the 70s, around 73 I believe, but it was left to fall into disrepair, and trains would be coming through here at a maximum of 15 miles an hour. So I believe they tried using it for freight for a while, and it just wasn't viable, and they mothballed them all. And this is constantly left derelict, and the other one is a public access tunnel which is on like a cycle route. This is one of those cubby holes that people would have gained refuge from the train back in the day. As you can see, there's not a great deal of room in there. Depends really how much or how close the train is as it comes through. Looking and not seeing any evidence of bat activity. Not to say that there isn't any. Okay, so ghost story time. The actual story is true, or so I've seen on the internet. Goes back to the time of 1915. The woman's name was a Mrs. Cook, spelt C-O-O-K-E. She was the wife of a railway, was he possibly a signalman? Lived in the harbour area, and she was travelling one day between Harbour and Kelmarsh, which this is the Kelmarsh tunnels. The reason why she's believed to haunt this area, don't know if you can feel my echo as I'm talking, but anyway, she met her demise in a very tragic accident. I believe it was April the 15th, 1915. She was travelling by train, and for some reason she stood up, fell backwards and fell out of the door. Now the doors in them days, the more modern trains, as you went into diesel, etc., if you remember, they had like you put your fingers in, pull the clip to the side and they'd open, but they were very, very loose. I always found them. I've managed to by accident open a train door at 80 mile an hour coming away from Coventry once. It just flew wide open. Someone put the emergency handle on and we come to a safe standstill. But what happened to the poor Mrs. Cook is she fell out of the door. This was going as they approached the Oxenden Tunnel. She hit the bridge, so I'm led to believe. That killed her stone dead, and as she fell on the floor, the train went over her and pretty much cut her in half. So they had the gruesome task of picking up her remains, and it is believed that she haunts these tunnels, the Kelmarsh tunnels, as well as the Oxenden tunnels. Oxenden tunnels because that's where the accident happens, and the Kelmarsh tunnels, which one we're in here, the down tunnel of the Kelmarsh tunnel, she haunts here because this was her destination. This is where she wanted to get to, and because she didn't do it in life, she is believed to be stuck here in the afterlife forevermore. Now people turn around and say there's a bit of a wishy-washy tale. Could it actually happen? Is it true? Well, I'll put it this way. I believe he was either a great uncle. It's a story that my grandfather told me. He went by the name of Uncle Joe. I don't know if it's them times where he just happened to be a family friend and he was called Joe. But anyway, he was sitting in a rail carriage going along. He stood up, lost his balance and put his put his hand accidentally on a young lady's knee. She thought he was getting fruity and pushed him. Now he fell out, because they were open-sided carriages them days. He fell out the side of the carriage, fell down the embankment, and as he slid down the embankment, the train cut his legs off up to his waist like a bacon slicer as he was falling further down. So I only know this story because of an incident that happened years later. Someone was roughing up a girl in a bar, and Joe would frequent this bar. He would swing himself up on a bar stool like a monkey and sit on the bar, and he kept a cutthroat razor with him, and he grabbed hold of this guy and slit his throat that was giving this woman a hard time, and they never found the weapon. He hid it under a mat, and then they disposed of it, and they thought, well, how could a man of his disabilities cause this sort of crime? So he got away with it. So again, make of that what you will. This is what I was told a good 40 years ago by my grandfather. I probably have my own relatives that possibly watch this channel that could side with that. I really don't know. But I said the story I've told you about Mrs. Cook is factual to what I believe. Whether she purely got her legs run over or cut in half by the train, but I believe she hit the bridge first, so she was dead before it even happened. But it's tragic, and she's one of many ghosts that is believed to frequent this area, and I can only pinpoint it from news stories of the time. Otherwise you just, there's a load of ghosts with no meaning, so it kind of helps, kind of tells its own story. I could do a spirit box down here, but no, you know what, I think the story itself is enough, and the fact that we're down here in the dark, somewhere abandoned, somewhere desolate, it's got its own creepy vibes, especially with the echo. Paul's pointed this out to me. I can tell you what that is now. That is like calcite, iron ore. It's just like mineral. Water continually runs and drips, and it's like, it'll end up being like stalactites and stalagmites. Tights come down, mites go up, that sort of thing. And what it does, it just builds up, and it will form there, and it will continually drop, and it might grow by 1 millimetre a year. It just shows you how long it's been dropping water on that, and that will just continue to come out, it will build out, and eventually it will take over the wall. But I dare say this will be demolished long before then. But yeah, that's like I think it's either a calcite or iron ore deposit. It's just got that reddishness to it that turns out like a rustiness, which says it could be iron ore. Yeah, it's pretty much safe to touch. It's not going to cause you any harm. It's just the water. As you can see, there's different types of deposits, all different minerals. That's why they're all different colours. Don't know whether you can see this, whether it's picking it up. The little glistening, the little tiny little specks as you go through, almost diamondish in their reflection. It's not glass, it's mineral. What sort of mineral? I don't know. Quartz possibly. There's tiny little specks of it as you go along. Right, we come up to the point that you cannot get out of, or at least I believe you can't get out of. I might try the door anyway. But yeah, it's been very, very sticky and boggy this end. Yeah, see, this end's padlocked up. Not that it matters. We've managed to get in here and do what we wanted to do, and we just simply turn around and go the other way, which we got to do anyway because that's where the car's parked. But yeah, this was your spooky tunnel. Anyway guys, that's going to do it for today's 2 vlogs. Obviously you had the missile base before this one. This was the Kelmarsh tunnels, the public access tunnel further over mound area over there. This is the spooky haunted area where the tragic accident happened with this Mrs. Cook. I've enjoyed it. It's been a different kind of day. So with that, enjoy the rest of your week. I hope you've had a good one yourselves. From Adventures of Paul, be sure to check out his channel, give it a like. From myself, enjoy the rest of your weekend. If you're coming up to that, we are sort of midweek, tail end of midweek, coming up to the hump of the week anyway. But for myself, I'm Sunday doing Santa Pod, I believe, European Championships. Not sure what Paul's doing, but anyway, have a good one guys, take it easy, bye for now, see you in the movies.